I'm Kevin Gehl, voice of the Crusaders, and this is Sader Stories, the official podcast of Holy Cross Athletics, presented by UMass Memorial Health. Recently, Holy Cross announced the jersey retirement of 6 Crusader baseball and softball legends. This is the first time in program history jerseys will be retired for both Holy Cross baseball and softball. Coming up on April 26th, before a Patriot League matchup against Lafayette on Fitton Baseball Field, Holy Cross will host a celebration for 5 baseball Crusader legends: Louis Sock Alexis, Jack Barry, Owen Carroll, Jim O'Neill, and Mr. Ron Perry. Today, we're at the Prudential Center in Boston for a very special episode of Sader Stories. I'm thrilled to be joined by 2 Crusader icons and Holy Cross Varsity Club Hall of Famers, the son and grandson of the late, great Mr. Ron Perry, Ronnie Perry and Matt Perry. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here, Kevin.
Likewise. Thanks, Kevin.
Great to see you both. Before we get started, I just wanted to share my condolences again on the passing of your grandfather and your father, Mr. Perry. He passed away at the age of 92, but he led such a magnificent life in service to Holy Cross, first as a student athlete, then as an athletic director and administrator. I'm thinking deeply about what this honor would mean to him. Ronnie, what do you think a jersey retirement would mean to your dad?
It would have meant the world to him. We talked all the time about Holy Cross in general. We talked about the good old days when Dad played there, the glory days, really. I like to think of it when they were winning national championships. Dad played on both the 1954 NIT championship basketball team, and he absolutely loved the 1952 championship baseball team for many years. When he was athletic director from 1972 to 1998, annually the team would come back to Holy Cross. He just loved that one because it was very improbable. So I think to have the jersey retired and remembered with the other outstanding folks that are getting the award would have meant the world to him. And on the 26th, I'm quite sure it will.
It's a tremendous legacy because Holy Cross baseball dates back to 1876, and we have only 5 Crusader baseball legends in this class. So Matt, thinking about that history, what does it mean to see your grandfather as part of this select company?
Oh, it's a tremendous honor to be able to see a Perry up there, a jersey retired for a program that's had, like you said, Kevin, 100+ year history of success and great teams and a lot of great players that have come through. And I think my grandfather, distinguished himself as a player and many other things at the school throughout. So it's just a great honor.
I'm sure it was emotional back in October, but to hear the tributes pouring in, to hear the kind words and all the stories about his accolades, his personality, the selfless things he did for the college, what really stood out to you in stories that you heard back about your grandfather?
For me personally, it was, as much about getting a chance to relive all the athletic greatness as it was. And honestly, more of the stories were about how great of a person my grandfather was while he was a student athlete there, certainly his great long tenure as an AD, and how many, of our family members have come up through the school, but friends and acquaintances that said, hey, if I had never met your grandfather, I never would have had a chance to go to Holy Cross, and that changed my life. And that was in addition to all the, the great things he did again as a student athlete at the Cross. It was just amidst a really challenging time for the family. It was a lot of great stories to get a chance to relive.
That's a very special way to remember him. Ronnie, I know that your dad meant so much to Holy Cross, but Holy Cross meant so much to him. How often did you sit through stories about baseball triumphs, basketball triumphs, and those relationships with teammates that lasted well beyond the 50s?
I'd have to say Holy Cross and the stories went back to as far back as I can remember. Childhood, when I was a young boy, going to games, learning of the championships, meeting the different players that Dad had played with, along the way. Whether it was Tom Heinz and Bob Cousy, and then the baseball stories would come out. It was just incredible. And then, Dad just loved Holy Cross, everything about it. He went there. They played at the Boston Garden because Dad went to Somerville High School. And Somerville High played at the Boston Garden. That was a big deal to Dad. And he just loved the college. He loved the people there. And that's really what he stressed. He said, Holy Cross is about the people. He said, we've had great teams. We've got great tradition. He became athletic director, which was a perfect job for him. When I was there in 1972 to 1976, that's actually when Dad got there. I was there from 76 to 80. It was great. and being there with Dad and going through the stories. But it was again, I think it was the people. He helped so many people, Kevin, that wanted to go to Holy Cross. He helped them connect, at Holy Cross and be there. People have come up to me and said, without your dad and without connecting with your dad about Holy Cross, it changed the trajectory of my life. So it was well beyond sports, but sports was always kind of at the epicenter of his sort of experiences, which he shared with us. Family members, my two sisters went to Holy Cross. Matt and two of his sisters went to Holy Cross. My wife's dad went to Holy Cross. On and on, you get the picture.
Every time you guys get together, it's like an alumni gathering. It's really special. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll look back at the Perry family legacy on Holy Cross baseball right here on Sader Stories.
We are UMass Memorial Health, and innovation is something that defines us, that drives us to discover new ways to provide answers and hope, to provide opportunity and access and equity for everyone, to redefine what medicine can do and how it can heal relentlessly.
For the first time since 1956, Holy Cross football will play a game inside Fenway Park. On Saturday, November 22nd, the Crusaders host Georgetown Hoyas at America's most beloved ballpark. Place your 2025 football season ticket deposits now to guarantee priority access to Fenway tickets, along with so many other season ticket member benefits. For more info, visit goholycross.com/tickets or call 1-844-GO-CROSS. Welcome back to Sader Stories, presented by UMass Memorial Health. I'm Kevin Gehl, joined by Ronnie and Matt Perry. Before we go any further, guys, we've got to talk about this Fenway Park opportunity. It's going to happen just a couple blocks away from where we're sitting here at the Pru. Ronnie, how special will that be to watch your Crusaders play in America's most beloved ballpark?
I think it's great. I think for Holy Cross to get that exposure, and really for the kids to be able to play that game at Fenway is outstanding. And for the alums, can come to the game and really be excited about it. So it's a huge win, I think, for Holy Cross all the way around, and I think the exposure is great. But I think that'll be a memory that the players will always take with them. We were fortunate to play some baseball there back in the day, Matt, and it's really kind of a memory that you'll never forget, Kevin.
Matt, when did you get an opportunity to play at Fenway?
We got a chance to play in the baseball bean pot my sophomore year, and then for a couple of the New England All-Star games. It was like my dad said, a real honor and treat to play in such a storied ballpark and against some great local teams.
We've seen so many great World Series memories at Fenway Park for the Red Sox, but let's look back at the 1952 College World Series. Holy Cross enjoyed its run to a title with Ron Perry on the mound. I know he was so proud of the work he did in Omaha that year. Matt, let me start with you. What kind of memories did your grandfather share about that championship title in 1952?
This, Kevin, is probably the story I've heard the most, and for great reason. It was, I think, in many ways what seemed like an improbable. They're the only Northeast team to have won the Baseball World Series, and it was at a time, you look back at all the past champions, it's all the usual heavyweights in baseball, and then sprinkled in there in 52 is the Purple Holy Cross Championship. But they went out there with a really lean roster. They had a terrific season that year, and to win 6 games and might have been 8 days out there was, again, it seemed improbable, but just a testament to what an incredible team and collection of players that they had out there. And they, David against Goliath in many ways, but they came out on top.
That Goliath was the University of Missouri, had to beat them twice, and I know Holy Cross was up against it. What did your father talk most about, that resilient work by him and his teammates to carry that title out of there against all odds?
Right. I would say this, of all the things I asked Dad late in his later years, I'd say, Dad, what stands out with all the athletic accomplishments and things you're involved with? He said, it has to be the 1952 NCAA baseball team. And I said, why do you say that? He said, well, we went out there with 13 players. 11 players played in those games.
Wow,
in 6, yeah. 8 position players and 3 pitchers pitched 7 complete games. Wow. So it was that unbelievable. And they were warming up for each other when they weren't pitching in the games. And they had pitched the day before. And to lose early in that double elimination like that, you then have to go on a real run. They won their first game, then they lost, so now they had to rattle off 5 wins in a row, culminating with beating Missouri twice on the final day. Jim O'Neill pitches 3 complete game victories. Wow. Dad pitches 2 against, and he was proud, against Texas and Missouri. And Jim capped it off against Missouri in the final. And Jack Lonergan was 1-1, and the one loss was a one hit, 1-0 loss. He threw a 1-hitter. So it was just really improbable. And the thing that really struck me too is Dad said, I wasn't going to play that year. The basketball season ended, and he said, I'm going to really just kind of bear down on my academics and take a breather. He went to his room. It was very early in the season, and the ace of the staff, a fellow named Dick Brogdon, came down very ill, couldn't pitch. So Hop Riopelle appeared at my dad's room on like a Monday night, and he said, Coach Jack Barry, who was a legendary coach, wants you to pitch next Saturday against Brown. I said, well, Coach, I really wasn't planning on playing. And secondly, I haven't even played catch, since the basketball season just ended. He says, well, we'll have a catcher go up to the field house every day, and you can play catch and warm up, and I'm sure you'll be ready to go next Saturday. So Dad did. He was ready to go next Saturday, and I said, how'd it go, Dad? He said, we beat Brown 4-2, and I pitched a 9-inning complete game. Wow. And that was it. And he ends up pitching and having an unbelievable pitching career. He had played for Hop on the freshman team, Hop Riopelle, so they knew each other well. He had great respect for Coach Riopelle, who was legendary as well, and that's how his season began. So when he puts all that together, he said, it was the most improbable kind of year all the way around, and then we won the whole thing in Omaha. So it really, really stood out. It was special.
It's amazing hearing this history because it shows how much the game of college baseball has changed. Just listen to the pitcher usage, how many innings they were throwing. But you were a multi-sport athlete as well. The quick move from basketball to baseball, 2 seasons back to back. Matt, by the time you were playing, sports have gotten so specialized in college athletics. It's amazing to hear these types of accolades across multiple seasons.
It is amazing, and it makes me think back to just growing up in youth athletics. That was an important part of what I did growing up, was play 3 sports. You were bouncing around different players, challenges, coaches, teammates year-round. I think that developed, sort of your whole self as an athlete, and yet the demands of being a D1 college athlete really became, a 365, year-round 24/7 endeavor. And so we were committed to travel summer ball. In the fall, you had a full slate. In the winter, you had your individuals, which set you up for it felt like 50 or 60 games in about 75 days. So that was just a year-round commitment that we certainly embraced, but that's the way that the college athletic landscape's trended.
I love the story, too, about Ron Perry saying, I want to focus on my academics, because that was certainly a key part of his Holy Cross experience as well. Matt, you got a really unique opportunity. The 1952 College World Series team was honored while you were a player at Holy Cross, and your grandfather threw out the first pitch. You got to catch it. Yep. Very few people can say that they've had a moment as special as that on a college diamond.
Yeah. I think most importantly, my grandfather threw a strike, which was no surprise to me. It caught it right down the middle. It was special. I felt so fortunate to be a baseball player on the team, sort of in many ways in my own era with my own, group of teammates and up at the school, and yet it's something that's so special about Holy Cross is its tie into such a successful history, and obviously was so well aware of the great, run that my dad had there as both a basketball and baseball player, and was so proud of what my grandfather had done as well. So it was special to have my grandfather back to honor a national championship team while we're trying to, set up our own sort of era of success on the team too. So it's just a really special, family moment for me.
Let's take another break. We'll have plenty more with the Perrys when we come back on Sader Stories.
More than half a century has led to 14 programs, dozens of championships, and varsity club Hall of Famers. Countless dreams realized, and unlimited potential for the future. Over the course of our history, our women have become creators, leaders, and achievers. Together, unapologetically, we've embraced challenges, seized the spotlight, and pursued comprehensive excellence in everything we've done. In the classroom, in competition, and in the community. Now, more than ever, Holy Cross is committed to empowering and enriching the student-athlete experience for our women's teams. We've celebrated how far we've come, And now, you can help us shape the next generation of female student athletes. Together, we can continue to change the game. Invest in women's athletics to help our women's teams compete for championships, develop leaders, and build a community around women's athletics. Now is the time. Let's continue to make history together.
Welcome back to Sader Stories, presented by UMass Memorial Health. I'm Kevin Gehl, joined by the first family of Holy Cross Athletics, Ronnie and Matt Perry. Ronnie, you've spent your entire life as a member of the Holy Cross family. What makes the college itself so special to you all these years later?
Well, I think it was the fact that I was introduced to Holy Cross as such a young boy. The games, the people, and then ultimately going to Holy Cross was really a dream come true. There were other places I could have gone, but I think I always knew I was going to Holy Cross. I went through the motions and had a couple of other visits. The idea of playing basketball and baseball, I knew what my dad had accomplished at Holy Cross, and that was something that I was super excited about. It was a different time in the 70s than it was in the 50s, but I love the tradition. I love what had been accomplished there with the national championships. And, Holy Cross to me was way more than a college. The people, and I love the people that were there. The people in Worcester embraced us. Everything about it was it was comfortable. It was family. My mom and dad were able to, dad was the AD, so he was going to the games. My mom was there all the time. She was the unsung hero. She was always there at all the games, whether it was Matt's or, obviously she was watching back when dad was playing, so she was always there too. So it was a real family thing. And like I said, our families, a lot of us went to Holy Cross too. So everything about Holy Cross became really a big part of us, much more than just a school. It was we got a great education. We met a lot of people, and I got to tell you, the same people we met there. My father said, "You're going to make lifelong friendships," and I have, and we're still very close with the players that played back when we played, right, Matt? And we're in touch with everyone, and we still care deeply about all the goings on at Holy Cross.
One of my favorite lines, it's not a 4-year commitment, it's a 40-year commitment. So thinking about all that family history, Matt, what could another college baseball coach have possibly promised you to not send you to Holy Cross at the end of the day?
I had, interestingly, I was having I'd say a good high school career, maybe not the high school career that would have made playing D1 athletics seemed obvious. And I had a dinner with my dad as a junior, and we listed out, he had asked me, I think it became 14 schools that I was maybe interested in going to. Most of them were just to go as a student. I wasn't sure that I had the ability to play in college at all, let alone D1 athletics. And I had 4 schools on there for baseball. One of the schools on this list was BC. Holy Cross was not on the list. So 0 for 14, and Ron said, "Hey, just humor me because you add Holy Cross as the 15th school." That was my number in sports.
That was my number.
Kind of a lucky number, and just add it to the list, which I happily did. And what really happened, Kevin, was the perfect match for me of, and candidly, the coach at the time took a chance on me to have me in there, in spite of what was a great family legacy. I was thrilled to have had the honor to go there as an athlete. I was very interested in, being a student at the school. I was aware of the great academic history, and I think my dad touched on it as well. There's just a terrific culture and collection of people there, student body, coaches, the professors, administrators, and the like. And it just had the right fit. And yet I was able to, I think, be a part of such a great family legacy. And I was also there at a time where I could be my own person. I was my own student athlete and have my own sort of experience there while I was there.
I had instructions that day when Matt visited with the coach from my wife, Sheila.
What'd she tell him to do?
She told me to make sure once the discussion began to be quiet. So let coach and
That was tough for you, right?
Matt have. It was very hard. And they did, and they hit it off. And afterwards we went to one of my favorite spots, and Matt likes it too, the Wonder Bar on Shrewsbury Street. Had a pizza and said, "What did you think of that, Matt?" He says, "I think I want to go to Holy Cross." And he said, "How do you think I should follow up with the coach?" I said, "Well, you can send him a note, you can give him a call." Matt said, Matt's pretty reserved and low-key, he said, "Why don't we just take a ride back?" And we went back to Holy Cross. I stayed in the car. I was a good boy. Matt went in, and they both came out smiling, and Matt was on his way to Holy Cross.
Matt, it's safe to say you made the most of that opportunity. I know you're being humble about your beginnings, but your dad set the hits record for Holy Cross in 1978, and to his surprise, he's sitting at your game with your grandfather in 2009, and somebody walks up to you, Ronnie, and says, you know, Matt's about to break your hits record. Were you aware? You certainly weren't aware, but did you know that that record was within reach?
Very vaguely, Kevin. I think you touched on something that was important to me, which was great about being at Holy Cross, was I was fortunate to have my dad, my grandfather, my mom, my family at a lot of the games. It created a really nice environment for me. And I think what we set out to do as a team during that 4-year stretch was get better every year and pursue team success and team greatness. And I think with that as the focus, the sort of thought was, well, if we're doing all the right things and we're winning games and we're competing for a league championship, the individual, accolades, that we don't know that we were out after records, but that type of stuff is just going to happen. And we were playing well, and it was just, honestly, it was something that happened. I remember they made an announcement on the speaker. I gave my dad and grandfather a quick little wave, and then, back to business in many ways. But I felt fortunate to have had the chance to, even have that type of success.
And it's all part of the history now, that Perry legacy that has continued on for 3 generations. And I know Mr. Perry was very proud of this fact as well, Ronnie. All 3 of you were drafted by Major League Baseball teams. How did that open up opportunities for the future, and how did that help shift your focus for the path you're on now?
It opened it up in a big way. When I was going from Catholic Memorial in West Roxbury and made the decision to go to Holy Cross, a big piece of that, in addition to having the familiarity that I had at Holy Cross, was to play both basketball and baseball. I was going to play both, and my father said, if you do the kind of things you can do and you're going to be on good teams, you're going to play very competitive D1 schedules. Holy Cross was playing. We were playing very strong basketball and baseball schedules. He said, you'll have an opportunity to play in the summer. I played at the Cape 2 summers. I went to Yugoslavia, or I went to Argentina for basketball. All kinds of things happened. Ended up getting drafted in both sports. My father had been drafted in both sports. Matt goes to Holy Cross, has an exceptional career, just got better and better, and was drafted in MLB as well. It opens up a lot of doors. The experience was incredible. You're playing now at a very high level, the top level, with a chance to keep going. And I think from a competitive standpoint, it opened up a lot of doors. And it sets you up really for the rest of your life, because you've now competed, you've worked hard, and you can translate that kind of work ethic and that kind of competitiveness into a lot of different opportunities. And for me, it turned out to be a career in real estate. So it's been great.
And that's one of the reasons we're sitting here at the Prudential Center in Boston today. The commercial real estate game has obviously been very good to you both. What is it like to share in not just these experiences from Holy Cross, but now in the professional world as well?
I'll speak first, Kevin. It's been, as I transitioned out of baseball, I explored a number of different career paths, and I had started I think what I called the longest internship, where Ron worked at the time, because I didn't have college to go back to. So the kids went back, and I sort of kept showing up. And the more I was doing it, I said, you know what, this, and you just touched on it. There are a lot of analogies to the athletic background. It's about hard work and discipline and dealing with failure and setting up your process as a team and going after, team success, not individual success. And to have the chance to work with my dad's been a real pleasure. We get to spend so much more time together than we would otherwise be afforded to do. So that's been a real blessing for me. It's been certainly a challenging but rewarding career as well, and looking forward to many more years to come.
Let's take one last break. When we return, we'll look ahead to the Crusader Baseball Legends Ceremony right here on Sader Stories.
Leadership and excellence in competition, in the classroom, in the community. For decades, Crusader Athletics has focused on our topmost commitment: elevating every student athlete to reach for more, to grow more, to achieve more. Help us to continue to strengthen minds, build character, and celebrate together as one Crusader Nation. Because when we commit together, we win together. Join us, Crusaders together.
Last year, Crusader fans made the second annual Coaches Roadshow a huge hit. This May, Holy Cross coaches are hitting the road again, heading to Boston, New York City, and this year, Washington, D.C. for the first time. Each roadshow will feature a panel of Holy Cross head coaches sharing program updates and insights on their upcoming seasons. Space is limited, so register now at goholycross.com/roadshow. Welcome back to Sader Stories, presented by UMass Memorial Health. I'm Kevin Gehl, voice of the Crusaders, joined by Holy Cross Varsity Club Athletic Hall of Famers Ronnie and Matt Perry. Ronnie, as far as we know, the Perrys are the only three-generation family members in the Holy Cross Varsity Club Athletic Hall of Fame. How special was that to your father when he got to see Matt inducted as a third-generation Hall of Famer?
That was a really special night for all of us. I mean, I was right there as well. But I'd have to say for Dad, for Ron Sr., that was as emotional as I've seen him, Kevin. I think it was the third generation. I think Matt had such a great career, and to see it all come together. And Dad, of course, he was a member of the varsity club, and he's been up there, so he knows all about the Hall of Fame, right? And the athletes that have gone in. So I think it all came together for him in such a way that it was the family aspect of it, the pride, but he was close to speechless that night, which is saying something, and emotional, right? And we were all very proud. It was a great evening, and it means a lot to us, to be in the Hall of Fame and to see Matt go in like that was really special. And Ron Sr., like I said, it was a night that he always brought up with me and said, what a great night, what Matt accomplished. I'm so proud of him.
You could have never even imagined, Matt, that something like that would be on the table when you first arrived at Holy Cross, right?
It was the furthest thing from, what was on my mind, Kevin. It was just about, going in, trying to establish yourself as a good teammate and work hard and try and carve out a role on the team that you think, would add value to the team's goals, freshman year through senior year, and to look back at the career, a few years after graduating at that point and say, hey, we accomplished something pretty special during that time period. And again, some of the personal stats, went well too, and put you in a position to be even considered for the Hall of Fame. It was a tremendous honor to get the word, and then to sort of spend that night and give my thanks to my dad and grandfather and so many others who helped put me in that position. It was just a night that I'll treasure forever. It's an honor. I'm really thankful to have been considered for.
Your father, Ron Perry, he had so many wonderful accomplishments. We mentioned the 1952 College World Series, 1954 NIT championship with Holy Cross on the basketball court. But you had mentioned that it was his final game he pitched against Harvard that brought back some of the most unique memories, and he talked about often. What happened in that game against Harvard?
So Holy Cross was playing at Harvard, and Harvard was a very good team. They were very good in baseball. The Cleary brothers played there. They were Olympic hockey players, great athletes. Bill Cleary ended up becoming athletic director there when Dad was athletic director at Holy Cross. He often would leave Dad messages and say to, if Dad wasn't there, to his assistant that, Red Auerbach called. He'd leave names like that, so Dad would say, Red Auerbach, I'm going to call Bill Cleary up and say it's, another coach that he won't recognize. But anyways, Dad pitches that game, and at the end of the game, Hop Riopelle and Jack Barry are the coaches. Jack's the head coach, and Hop is the assistant coach. The players are now, Dad finishes the game, Holy Cross wins, and the players are running in from the positions, mobbing Dad on the mound. And apparently someone could overhear the coaches talking, and Jack Barry, who was well into his 70s at that point, legendary coach, all-time winningest coach at Holy Cross, said to Hop Riopelle, hey, Coach, why are all the players jumping on Ronnie? And Hop turned to Coach Barry and said, he just threw a no-hitter. And Jack Barry apparently said, I thought he threw pretty well today. So my father would tell that story, like those were the times that things didn't get blown out of proportion, complete game, no hitter or whatever. So I said to Dad, I said, did Coach Barry say anything to you post-game? Because he said he never really said too much. He was old school, and he said, I do believe when I walked by him, he said, nice game. And he was like elated because that was the compliment. So the no-hitter, it was unassuming, and I just thought that story was such a classic. Why are they jumping on him?
No faint praise from Jack Barry, who will be honored among these Crusader baseball legends with your dad as well. I was curious. He obviously had a fantastic baseball career. He was Mr. Outside on that NIT championship team. He was a tremendous shooter. How did his post-college plans come together? Because he had options. He was drafted by the Celtics, but then kept finding his way back to the Diamond, eventually with the Braves in the minors, correct?
Yeah, so he was drafted by both the Celtics and the Braves. Back in those days, I think they were the Boston Braves, but they ended up going maybe to Milwaukee during that time as well. Dad had to go into the service, so he went into the Marine Corps. It was after the Korean War. It was 1954 to 1957. Dad was in Quantico, Virginia, and then later went to Hawaii. So he played basketball and baseball in the service and had an unbelievably distinguished career doing that while in the service. And then when he came out, Kevin, my older sister, Mary Ellen, had been born in Hawaii, and I was on the way. So it's 1957 going to 1958 when I was born. And Dad said, to go into the minors at that point and try to work your way up to the major leagues. It would have been the equivalent of going to, I think, like AA. He said, I'm going to get on with, what turned out to be coaching at Catholic Memorial. So he could have played, and I think would have, in both sports, but for the service, and then get into the coaching. He had an amazing coaching career at Catholic Memorial, both basketball and baseball, for 15 years before going to Holy Cross to be the athletic director for the next 26. So that's kind of the journey that he took, but it always involved athletics. It always seemed to involve basketball and baseball. So he found a way to, to continue to play ball.
He lived such an incredible life, a national champion as a player, an outstanding coach, served his country, served his college. Matt, if you had to point to the best life advice that you ever learned from your grandfather, what would it be?
I think my grandfather he left a legacy of doing things the right way. It was evident the way that he played, the stories you hear from him, and how he would even remember, again, what was team success back then. It was very little about the individual accolades, and he had such a fond memory of playing with his teammates, and then certainly as a time as athletic director, it was just about the people that he surrounded himself with, the people he helped. We were so fortunate to have, him as kind of a guiding light at HC, and Holy Cross is such a wonderful place for, us to go to. I met my wife, Katie, at Holy Cross, which I never would have had the chance to have had happen. So many wonderful things have come, from him. Again, just doing things the right way and sort of bringing us up in that environment.
I'm so glad that Holy Cross Baseball will be honoring him along with 4 other Crusader baseball legends coming up on April 26th. Ronnie, I want to wrap up this great conversation with you. Obviously, Mr. Perry is no longer with us. How will you honor him on April 26th? What will it mean to you to shine this light back on your dad, who meant so much to all of us at the college?
Well, I think it'll just be an opportunity. I'm going to be thinking about him. We all will be, how much this means to him. And I'm firmly, as we do it, I'm going to believe that he's looking down on Fit and Field, smiling on the ceremony. It would have meant the world to him, and I think it will mean the world to him. But I think what stands out the most, I think, with Dad, he never really talked about, I did this or I did that. Someone came up to me when I was trying to put thoughts together for Dad's eulogy at the Mass, which was hard to do because he accomplished so much in his life. But I think along the lines of what Matt just said, he was doing things for other people. He was, in sports terms, he was an impact player. He impacted a lot of people positively. So I think one person said to me, he's a Holy Cross grad too, he said, if I really summed up your dad and as a person, as an athlete, as a coach, as a family man, he was a winner. He won. I mean, these championships and all these other things are great. The accolades are great because they happened at almost every level that he was at. But as a person, I think along the lines of what Matt just said, he was a winner. He was good with people, no matter what level you were at, right? His parents emigrated from Portugal. They were hardworking people. And he always said, the people that are doing work that's really hard work, that doesn't even get noticed by some people, those are the people that you really need to pay attention to. Those are the kind of memories and messages that he would give to us.
It's an incredible legacy and message that lives on to this day. Ronnie Perry, Matt Perry, thank you so much for sharing your stories, your memories, and we can't wait to see you again on April 26th for the Crusader Baseball Legends.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank you both. And my thanks to everyone for tuning in to Sader Stories. We'll be back with another episode soon. Until then, we ask that you tell your fellow Crusaders about Sader Stories, available anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. I'm Kevin Gehl. Thanks for tuning in. Go Cross Go.